Hey everyone, this is Eric Troy from StrengthMinded.com and CulinaryLore.com, and you're listening to the BS Vaccine for Fitness and Nutrition podcast, a series that is meant to help inoculate you against fitness, nutrition, and health-related bullshit, and teach you some very useful critical thinking skills along the way. I'm proud to announce that this podcast does not contain chemicals known to the state of California to cause cancer or birth defects. Or does it? You know, I just can't be sure. The truth is, you can scarcely go anywhere in California without seeing a sign that says you will be exposed to chemicals known to the state of California to cause cancer and birth defects or other reproductive harm. In fact, according to California, the Disneyland Resort is toxic, and there's a sign that says so. This kind of thing happens because of Proposition 65. Proposition 65 is actually the California Safe Drinking Water and Toxic Enforcement Act of 1986. But the ballot measure that was voted in by 63% of voters was called Proposition 65, so that's what we call it. This is the same regulation that requires this warning to be posted to perhaps half or more of the products you purchase online. Since these products may be sold in California, this warning needs to occur unless the seller wants to pay a hefty fee. Should you be worried about toxic exposure when you see this California Prop 65 warning? The answer is that you do not need to worry about dangerous exposure because of the presence of this Prop 65 warning alone. In California, coffee has this warning. French fries and potato chips have this warning. Just about everything gives you cancer in California. Let's look at French fries and potato chips. When fried in oil, starchy foods like potatoes build up a chemical called acrylamide. This is a potential carcinogen that's found in a host of everyday foods. Acrylamide is on the list of over 900 chemicals for which California requires a warning. Not all of these chemicals are really considered to be a big problem by the scientific consensus. It only takes one so-called authoritative body to raise an alarm over a chemical to get it on the list. Now, it's true that acrylamide has been shown to cause cancer in animals at very high doses, meaning gargantuan doses, outright impossible doses, but there has never been a direct link shown between acrylamide exposure and cancer in humans. And in fact, the same can be said of many everyday and ordinarily benign chemicals. And coffee? Remember I said coffee is on the Prop 65 list. Well, coffee has a huge record of safety in scientific studies. Over 100 studies have shown that coffee is safe for you to drink in moderation and may even reduce the risk of certain cancers. Sure, if you take one of the hundreds of compounds in coffee and give ridiculous amounts of it to laboratory rats, you may be able to cause them to get cancer. Here again, it was acrylamide. Here are some other everyday foods that California says will give you cancer because of acrylamide. Roasted asparagus, canned sweet potatoes, canned pumpkin, canned black olives, roasted nuts, prune juice, breakfast cereals, crackers, cookies, breads, and toast. The range of products in which California has detected acrylamide in particular are staggering. However, the amount of the chemical found in these products is minuscule, tiny. For example, chock full of nuts, the Heavenly Coffee, all method grind, ground but not actually brewed, was found to have 197 parts per billion of acrylamide. Imagine 197 individual drops of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and you'll have a good idea of how small this amount actually is. And in an actual cup of brewed coffee, there's probably less. According to California, flip-flops, sandals, and toothbrushes are also dangerous and may give you cancer. And an article by the Genetic Literacy Project reveals that they are also considering adding acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, to the list. Now, I'm not saying that California's Prop 65 hasn't done some good. For example, it did result in the elimination of some dangerous chemicals from certain products. For example, it caused the removal of lead from a great many children's toys, more than 800 of them. But this is not consensus science. Many of the chemicals listed as unsafe run completely counter to the scientific consensus on the safety of that substance. As I said, if only one authoritative body declares a substance to be potentially carcinogenic, it may well be added to the list, even if every other authoritative body disagrees. Let's be very clear about this. Being added to the list does not mean that a causal link between the chemical and any adverse health effect has been found. Remember what I said about coffee? Coffee has been shown to be perfectly safe for us to drink in moderation in over 100 studies, and yet Prop 65 applies to coffee. I think that the harm being done by Prop 65 outweighs any potential good. Have you noticed the never-ending lawsuits about everyday things causing cancer? You can thank Prop 65 for that, which has spawned an entire industry of tort-driven profiteering bullshit that further spreads fear and confusion about our food supply and costs billions of dollars, and not only corporate dollars, but it also raises our food cost. You may have heard about glycophosphate being found in all sorts of foods, even oat-based cereals, for example. Well, you need to eat about 30 bowls of cereal to be in any danger at all. But in truth, all any company has to do is warn you, and they can be as carcinogenic as they want. That's why you constantly see these warnings on so many products. What are you going to do if you see cancer warnings on everything? Are you going to just assume that everything causes cancer and get on with your day? Sam Delson, a spokesperson for the state's Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, said maybe there's a feeling in the public that everything causes cancer, but there are strict criteria for inclusion on the list. Many chemicals are considered and not listed, and sometimes they're removed from the list as new evidence emerges. He went on to say that criticism may miss the point of the law. It looks like a law that says we're requiring warnings, and in fact, the ideal number of warnings under Proposition 65 is 0. Now that, folks, is some BS. The ideal number of warnings doesn't matter. Reality does, and in reality, it's a law that requires warnings. And this will not likely result in most people assuming everything causes cancer. It will just as likely cause people to grow deaf and blind to such warnings. If you're warned against eating or drinking or using anything, then what are you going to do?